Well, they walk into the Maria Magdalena Academy.
So funny. I love it.
Just handing it to us on a platter. Like, I feel like it's almost not even worth like rabbit holing about because it's just so in your face. Though I did want to mention that there was a medieval painting, so when Nick and June are outside as they're walking, like you get your first hint that this is a religious school of some persuasion because above Nick's head is a medieval and or a Gothic style painting. I think it's a
I saw that like with the icons
fresco.
and
That's what they're
stuff.
called.
Really
Yeah.
cool. Okay.
So I thought that like you see that and you're just like, oh, this is like another like sort of. I couldn't really make out what it was, but yeah.
Oh, see, I don't know anything about painting, so I just assumed it was another Bible painting. Like, it definitely just seemed like...
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much.
Some sort of meaning.
like, it's a church school.
It was
so church pictures. Got it.
Church pictures. But yeah, you're right. Like June can't even finish her sentence before Nick is already like, I already like knew that you weren't gonna be able to let her go, or that you were gonna keep up the fight, and I've already been compiling all of the things and stuff, and just like, I didn't expect to get to hand it to you in person though. Like, oh god, he knows his lady.
Yeah, you know what it made me think of too when he said that, because then it made the line of him saying thanks for inviting me jump out more, and I'm wondering if he didn't get that invitation to go see her until after he found out about the conversation with Larry and June. And I bet that would hurt him if he found out from Larry that June had tried to communicate with him through the U.S. government and hasn't tried to communicate with Nick. He might understand it, but it would still kind of be a gut punch of like, wow, I don't get that conversation. And then she gets, he apparently gets the invitation from her and the U.S. government to say, oh, come on over and you'll face no repercussions. Maybe just have a chat. Like, I'm kind of curious exactly how this proposal all worked out, but whatever, it worked.
I'd like to be on a fly on the wall for that conversation as well.
Oh, you know what else it made me think of, since we're talking about how this all went down? I think it's in this part where she says that it's Secret Service specifically. And so it makes me wonder again exactly who Tuello is, because I know Secret Service it has to be like an executive order. I'm not saying Tuello couldn't get an executive order, or I don't know. It was just kind of like, damn, she got Secret Service. Like, I'm assuming that what's left of the American government is trying to at least act like the old American government. You know what I mean? And so there must be a president. And I'm just wondering, like, again, I don't think it's Tuello necessarily, but he seems to be working closely with the president if he can get June an executive order to get some Secret Service to go visit Commander Blaine.
Yeah.
I was curious who exactly was protecting her. Then when she did say Secret Service, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Not interesting. I mean, it kind of makes sense, but.
All right, so I'm on the Secret Service website right now because why not? And by law, the Secret Service is authorized to protect the president, vice president, or other individuals next in order of succession to the office of president, the president-elect, and vice president-elect, the immediate families of the above individuals, former presidents' spouses, except if the spouses remarry, children of former presidents, visiting heads of foreign states or government and their spouses traveling with them, and major candidates, other individuals as designated per executive order, and national special security events were designated. So for her to have Secret Service, unless she's just being cheeky, which, I mean, June is apt to do, and we've already seen them have like this banter back and forth, like as they are wont to do, it means that this would need to be an executive order from the president to have her protected. I mean, girl's got power. She's using it.
Tuello's got power. It's Tuello.
Of course Tuello has power.
I'm dying to know what kind of power he's got. Soon, we're going to get there.
I hope so. But we see June start to pour through all of these pictures, and like you hear that Hannah's in Colorado. Colorado Springs. What? Larry wasn't kidding when he said that she was outside of June's reach at this point. Like, holy shit. And Nick, you gotta appreciate that Nick pulls no punches here. He's like, getting her out is impossible. But at least you know where she's surrounded by guardians. They're everywhere. But at least you know where she is, and I'm here to do what I can.
The Colorado Springs thing, that threw me, because I'm just thinking if they're going to be headed into Testament's territory someday, how the hell are they going to finagle that? You know? I was just surprised to see her so far away, but I'm assuming, I don't know, maybe they'll wait until June disappears and then maybe say, hey, she's probably dead. How about you come back to Boston?
Or perhaps it's just as simple as like, we know that Hannah/Agnes's commander is pretty high up on the totem pole. By the time it gets to Testament's time, maybe he has to move. They have to move back to Boston so he can be closer to that political epicenter.
Especially if Lydia and Larry are pulling strings and they need to keep. I feel like if it goes the way that we feel like it's going with Lydia and Larry, then at least Larry specifically, he's not going to let something happen to Agnes where she just, you know what I mean? Not that he's not going to let something happen to her, but he's at least going to keep tabs on her.
Yeah. And it's easier to do that when she's in the same time zone.
Well, Nick has this whole dossier that he's been keeping for June, and there's these pictures, and June says, "You did this all for me." And there's all the tears. And it's like, yeah, he did this all for you. And Luke also had his own little thing going too, which was pretty much all for you. She's lucky to have these men in her life that equally love her.
And they're each raising, essentially, not that Nick's really raising Hannah, but they're each kind of looking out for each other's kid, which is really, it just kind of highlights the progress that everyone's making in this episode towards figuring out these relationships. Like, obviously it's complicated, but there's just emotions involved, and I feel like June's trying to find her place in all of that here. And this scene really helps her. I'm assuming going to help her in the long run, but by the end of this episode, who knows? Because like Scarlett said in the beginning, in part 1, this was 1 step forward and 3 steps back. So we'll see how much this does for June in the long term. But in this episode, I feel like in terms of her finding little bits of healing and closure where she can, this was part of it.
Yeah, that's a really good point, by the way, is that like Luke and Nick are effectively looking out for the other's children because of their mutual love for June. And I think that probably brings her a lot of peace, knowing that both of her children are being taken care of in some aspect when she can't be there. I think that does offer her a bit of healing. Also, what a perfect non-traditional but like very American family.
I love it.
I do too.
Yeah. I love this so much. I loved everything about this scene from here on out, especially when he gives her the little like cloth Gilead doll and he says, "My beautiful girl," and all the tears. Because I've seen that exact, interaction between my husband and our own children, and it just kind of does play out like that. And I was like, very sniffly. And these fucking violins kill me every time. Every single time. And then the icing on the cake was when they were parting ways, and he calls to her, and she turns, and he says, "Try and be happy." And she smiles and says, "You too." And then she leaves. And I'm guessing that this might be the last time they will see each other. I know I said this the last time, that I was like, yeah, episode 3, that kiss on the bridge was probably it for them.
That was a panicked, war-torn farewell, like goodbye kiss. This felt very much like a proper farewell.
Yeah.
Especially when Nick slid that wedding ring back on.
What the fuck is that?
That's not a surprise!
Want him to have it on his damn finger. I know it's not a surprise, but I don't like it, okay?
Regardless of whether or not it is their last time, they definitely have to treat each of these reunions like it is. Like, it has to at least play out that way for them emotionally, because who knows when the next time this is going to happen. And, as soon as she drives away, she's driving back to Luke and the family and the life she's trying to make in Canada. And he's slipping his wedding band back on and going back to Gilead. And I had the same reaction of like, oh my God, he's married. Then I'm like, duh, of course he's married. Just hadn't even thought about it. But now I'm like, shit. But then I'm like, wow, that makes me... I feel like they both understand the sacrifices that they're making. Like, it felt like the same sacrifice of like, I have to go back and without you, especially the sacrifice that Nick makes to get June out, to try to keep tabs on Hannah. Like, all of this for what? For him to stay in Gilead because he can't do anything else? Like, he just doesn't really have many other options other than to stay and continue to say goodbye to the people that he loves most and hope that they're just going to be okay in Canada. And I feel like her leaving as she's driving and going through all those emotions, I feel like it was kind of that same thing of having to just accept that they can't be together. At least they had, if nothing else, this really nice last moment. And it hurts that it's so nice because it could be the last, but it's also so nice. And I feel like she just really played all those emotions and the fear of thinking like he's back in Gilead. That's not gonna bode well, as Luke had pointed out in the beginning of the episode. And I really loved, I'm going to jump back to earlier when he was meeting Nicole again. I say meeting, but it feels like meeting because he barely got to meet her ever in Gilead. But when June says that she's stubborn, as the baby's saying no, no, no in the background, and he looks at June for a second, and then he says, I forget what he says exactly.
Wonder where she got that from.
Yeah, it's just so sweet because I just love that moment because, yeah, if there's anything we know for sure about June, it's that she is stubborn, and it was sweet that their baby is stubborn too, and I like that moment with them. And when she got in the car, and this could be me just kind of totally plucking this out of left field, but when she says, it's clearly she's speaking to Nicole when she says, "I love you, sweetie," but it kind of reminded me of in Pigs at the end when she's in bed with Esther and she says, "I love you, banana." It was kind of like she couldn't say it in that end, like as they're actually leaving, It kind of had to be that little like nose nudge, and then that last word that they said to each other about, "I hope you're happy," and they walk away, and as soon as she gets in the car, she's like, "I love you, sweetie," and I just feel like she had to say it out loud, and saying it to Nicole was the best she could do in that moment.
Brutal.
Her face acting on the way home when she's driving in the car, like, I swear to God, every little, twitch that her face makes conveys something.
Yeah. And the way the shadows like played on her face, like while her emotions are changing, like just the flicker of a light in her face would be different. And it was like exactly what her mind's just reeling with all the implications of this moment where she's like euphoric, but then all the other emotions that follow after that.
And we can all relate to this moment where you're driving away from something in a car and you just had this really huge thing happen and your mind is just reeling over everything. And I just, you don't get to look at yourself while you're driving to see what exactly your face is doing as your brain is playing catch up with what the hell just happened. And I guess that's kind of what we do.